evening and welcome to our 15th episode of Neurodigest. Here with me, Sylvia M, Mochabo, your host, and Maureen Maida, our interpreter for tonight. And we have our guest tonight, and we will be having a very interesting conversation. And the good thing is, today it's a Mora thing. Yes, so I bring to you Deborah Mora, yes, who's a psychologist, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So I got it right. She's a psychologist, and tonight we shall be discussing the basis of psychology and autism and all the other neurodevelopmental disorders that we have. So we shall dive right in, and we'll first give her the opportunity to officially introduce herself, so that anything we missed out, please do let us know. Like, what's your name, what you do exactly, how did you end up here specializing in this unique space, not just psychology at large, but actually specifically special needs. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this show.
You're welcome.
First and foremost, I am a clinical psychologist.
Okay.
So that basically means that I specialize in issues to do with mental health disorders and mental health issues.
Okay.
And secondly, I have an interest in interventions concerning people living with special needs or disorders, if I can call it that, with regards to mental health. Most especially children living with autism and cerebral palsy.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's your main point of focus.
Yeah, that's my
CP
point of focus.
and autism spectrum disorders.
Yes, autism spectrum disorders.
Okay.
Yeah, and not just intervening with them, but also doing research.
And
along those
research.
lines.
So
Yes.
you're thoroughly researched. Any questions that we have, you'll be able to deal with it.
As far as I can.
How many
Yes.
years? How many years have you specialized with special needs children?
I can say for about 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah, with authority for about 2 years.
Okay. Without authority.
Without authority, well, we can say spanning about 4 or 5. Yeah.
So who's the authorizing body for this?
Of course, if you do your research, you have to defend it,
Okay.
to do all that. So there's a paper I'm currently in the process of collecting, just about to get approvals to start collecting data.
Okay.
And coincidentally, it involves the inclusivity, educationally and socially, for children living with autism spectrum disorders.
Okay.
So just about to get approvals to do that research.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be talking to you up to date. Yes, welcome once again for those who are joining us right now. You're here on Neurodigest, and don't forget to interact with us on social media, and also for those who are watching us live on Facebook, if you have any questions, let's use the SMS number 20508. I'll say that again, 20508. That's the SMS number that if you have any questions for Daktari, right? Do we call it Daktari? You know, we've had issues of those who come like, no, I'm not a doctor. I'm a psychologist, I'm there, so I have to ask, seek permission. So how do we address you?
Just Deborah is fine.
Deborah is fine.
Yes.
But you're a doctor.
For purposes of this. I had a brief stint in the field of medicine, but
Okay.
yeah.
I tell you, this space is complicated. I'm like, okay, so, but if you're dealing with mental health, doesn't that make you a doctor? Don't you have to have done medicine for you to be able to clinically, actually use the word clinically handle?
Interestingly, with the, I wanted to say mutation, but it's evolution.
Okay.
And how things are running currently in the field. You have people in the arts, if you go to the level of PhD or a doctorate, you can be called a doctor.
Okay.
In some countries, you're allowed to prescribe medication if you have gone through the field of psychology. But currently in Kenya, that is not the case.
So what is the case?
Yeah. The case is you can practice at undergraduate level, of course under supervision, at master's level under supervision with someone with a doctorate, but now at doctorate level you are free to practice and you can be called a doctor at that level. But for me, within the field of psychology, I've gone as far as an MA in clinical psychology. So at undergrad I was just a basic psychologist. But now you graduate to clinical when you do clinical masters.
Okay.
If I can call it that.
So she's psychologist Deborah. Another Mora in the house, so let us feel associated for us Moras.
Yes.
So, okay, let us dive into this. So, there is this word that many people don't like being related with. I know I don't like it. When someone says that, I don't know to put it, mental illness, or to actually call, I've had someone call an autistic person a retard, and someone else who said, like, there's a parent who referred to their own child as mtoto wangu hana akili. And I know there was an uproar on media sometime when a media station actually wrote kutokuwa na kwa ubongo as the interpretation of autism. So could you kindly explain to us, because as parents are like, I don't know, my child is not a retard, my child is not mentally ill, it's actually a neurodevelopmental disorder, so let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
So how would you just help us break down the difference of the two?
Okay, so first of all, I would begin with neurodevelopmental disorders, which autism is one of them. And basically what this means is there was an issue with regards to the development of the brain.
Okay.
So they actually do not have a brain, or the brain is not absent, it is there. It's just that there was something that was amiss when it came to the formation.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that the child's brain is not functioning. It's just that there are deficiencies in functioning to a certain extent. Because if you see the child, they can swallow normally, they see, they hear, they can move about. It's just that there are certain deficiencies when it comes to certain areas of functioning.
Okay.
But all in all, they are functional. Yes. So mental illnesses is a term that was coined to sort of like an umbrella term. So if it is that in the psychotic disorders like schizophrenia or any other disorders that have psychotic features in them, those were what were initially called mental illnesses originally, and I believe that is what society still imagines to be mental illnesses. When it comes to children, for example, if someone had mental retardation, which is actually the clinical term, and it is in itself a diagnosable condition. So mental retardation does not envelope everything else in itself. It has, it is a disorder on its own. Yes.
Okay. So it's not a mental illness. It's on its own independently.
No. Mental retardation is also okay. When we talk about mental illnesses, basically envelope
all
anything. Yes. Okay. All of them. Yeah.
All right. So mental retardation is part of it.
Yeah, it's part of that. It's just a general term to refer to issues that have a neurological basis, issues that have a relation to a decrease in functioning of a certain area of the brain or whatever. But these conditions have a genesis at the brain level. So that is why they are called mental illnesses. Unfortunately, society has made it a derogatory term, and I think that is why people are very PC when it comes to someone calling a child, for example, with MR, saying they have a mental illness. It's just because of how society has learned to associate the word. Yeah. But it is the word that best describes the conditions.
But for me, if I say the word retard, there is just that negative icky thing that, there's that connotation that comes with it. That there is no polite word. I've seen you say MR. Okay, we'll justify it to that and stick to MR. But it feels like, I know there was a feature where a child actually called an autistic a fellow autistic student, the R word, which as we call it the R word in this space, you're like, don't you use that word, because it's not polite as much as it is, because in this aspect that's not what it is. So let's just call it correctly.
Yes,
because that's also one of the issues that we have in the public space. Even in schools, you find them saying that person is MH, you know, and you're like, no, that person is autistic. Like, just call a spade a spade. Why are you putting them in this bracket just because you have challenges in brain development? You are. So, and that's something that I believe the teachers need to be educated upon.
Yes, they do.
But now, that return, it felt like the person was okay, and then they regressed. So is that the case? I just want clarity. This is all clarity's sake. Yeah. Okay. So when you're saying someone is a retard, we just said someone is psychotic, someone has schizophrenia. So how would you elaborate what actually meant retardation?
Okay. Generally with a few of the neurodevelopmental disorders, you'll find that if there was not a delay in the achievement of the developmental milestones the child has, you'd find that they would develop properly up until the age of 2 years. But we usually say between 1.5, that's like 18 months, and the 24 months, that's when you start seeing a regression. And what happens with all these neurodevelopmental issues or challenges or disorders,
all the above,
they cannot be diagnosed before the child gets to the age of 5. So as much as you start seeing the symptoms before the child gets to the age of 2, until they get to the age of 5, we cannot diagnose them because of a certain developmental, if I can, not a stage per se, but a window.
A grace period.
Yes, of development. So until they have reached the age of 5, we can see, yes, there are certain symptoms that point to a certain direction, but the tools we use to diagnose their application begins around the age of 5.
I've had people say 4 also.
Yeah.
4 to 5 thereabout.
Yeah, 4 to 5 thereabout. So if we are talking now about the regression, now sort of like instead of the child moving forward in the stages of development, you find if a child was able to speak 2 words at the age of 2, then all out of nowhere they just slowly start losing their speech and all these other things. Now that's characteristic of autism spectrum disorders, and for ADHD as well. You can see the hyperactivity clearly around the age of 2 years. But with MR, if you look at it critically, how are you able to know that the child is not able to perform high or executive functioning unless they have gotten to the point of testing? Now, mental retardation is with regard to grasping things, grasping concepts. So until they have been to school, or as a parent you have noticed they do not follow instructions, simple instructions that are given to them, and it's not because they have not heard or they have not understood, but they do not have the high functioning ability to carry out or to process that. So you find there are children living, or even adults who have MR. They can talk, but their talk is jabber. Yeah, you can pick out things. You can pick out certain words they're trying to make out, but in itself, it's not consistent, or it does not make sense.
No, non-coherent.
Yes, it's non-coherent. It does not make grammatical sense, if I can put it that way. So retardation is mostly with regards to high functioning capabilities and effectiveness of carrying out tasks. That is why we cannot just lump all the neurodevelopmental disorders and say they are all MR. There are different specifiers for each of the different neurodevelopmental.
So when we're looking at autism, at least that we clearly stated that is a neurodevelopmental disorder.
Yes.
You said you're also specialist for cerebral palsy, right?
Yes.
And we know, rather, we in our first episode we took the time to actually break down what stands for what. So cerebral palsy, there are 4 types, right? 4 types of cerebral palsy affecting different areas of the brain.
Yes,
right?
at different levels.
I've done my homework. So,
Yes.
so affecting different areas of the brain. So could we say that some of the children living with cerebral palsy can be classified under mental illness? Because I just want us to have those very clear lines, because there is that inability depending on the degree of how they are affected.
Yes.
So how would we put these two apart? How do we set it aside? Because we've just clearly said autism is the neurodevelopmental disorder, the part where the neurons actually, the communication, that is what lacks of it. But when you're looking at what cerebral palsy means, because cerebral is the brain, palsy is
Paralysis,
the paralysis
of
yes,
the nerves.
of the nerves.
Yes.
Yes. So there is brain paralysis that actually hinders or affects the cognitive and the mobile function.
Yes.
Motor function. Good. So in that aspect where the brain gets so affected that actually it affects their daily living, their total functioning of the brain. So how do we categorize that?
Okay. One concept I feel would be important for us to grasp is an individual can have 2 conditions occurring at the same time.
Okay.
So you can have what we call comorbidity.
Yes, that one. Say it again for our viewers.
Comorbidity.
No, I've always struggled with it, so I say, let's see that one. Yes, I prefer saying the conditions that coexist with neurodevelopmental disorders.
Yes. And you can have 2 neurodevelopmental disorders being comorbid. You can have both of them coexisting.
Wow.
So a common comorbidity I have seen is autism comorbid with ADHD, or autism comorbid with MR.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Autism comorbid with CP. All the neurodevelopmental disorders, because even CP, because CP also could be at birth level. Yeah, could be intrauterine, could be at the process of giving birth. That's when,
the first 4 years.
Or the first 4 years.
Okay.
So, because its genesis is in the brain and the nervous system, because they are all connected, that is why we call them neurodevelopmental. Yes. So, you could have CP or being comorbid with MR. You could have autism being comorbid with MR. You could have ADHD being comorbid with autism. They could occur or co-occur together, simply because the effects are from the level of the brain.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in essence, you would find that a child, for example, who has CP on its own could try and communicate. They could they could do whatever. You could talk, they could listen, they could nod, to show that they have really understood and they have processed whatever it is that you're saying. But now if they have CP and it's comorbid with MR, then you find that at the level of executive functioning and understanding, there could be a disconnect somewhere. Yes. So they are all in the same group, because they are all neurodevelopmental disorders. The same way you find the Alzheimer's and the dementias in the older age, they are all under neurodegenerative disorders, because
neurodegenerative disorders. So we've learned a new section of it. Yeah, so we shall feature neurodegenerative at some point.
Some point.
Yeah.
So you find they are grouped based on at which level or stage of development they occur. So if it's in your younger years, they are called neurodevelopmental because they are from the point of development. If it is towards the end, the older years, it's neurodegenerative. And even in between, there are some that come on. Yeah. Okay. So it's staged. If I can.
So yeah, and it's something that since now we have the degeneration side of it, so you can have your life okay, but then in your yesteryears, not your yesteryears, in your sunset years, then you can get developmental disorder, not developmental, degenerative disorders, neurological issues.
Yes,
exactly. Yes. So you can have it even now when you're aging. Your system can actually degenerate to a way that you get affected.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. At least we know. So treat all those who are around you, and you're there calling them names or looking down upon neurodevelopmentally challenged children, thinking that they're less, thinking that they're not able to do things. Remember, we still have our sunset years ahead of us. And you remember, you can engage with us. You can send us questions on our SMS number 20508. And we'd like to take a short break so that we can recoup and process all those heavy terms and new learnings that we just interacted with. And we shall be right back. Don't go away. And remember, communicate to us. Let us know what questions you could be having in regard to this. And when we come back, we shall be touching on the comorbid conditions that coexist with autism and how they are related to psychological status of a human being. So don't go away and send in your questions. Don't forget and engage with us. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Neurodigest. You're here with me, your host Sylvia M, Mochabo, here on Neurodigest, and today we are discussing psychology, and especially in special needs children. And we have covered the difference between mental illness, mental retardation, neurodevelopmental disorders. And now I'd like for us we have learned something new also about neurodegeneration. But there is this gap in between that always intrigues me as a parent. And as a parent of a child living with special needs. And this is a time I dread. I will not lie, all honesty, teenage. How? If our children, let me rewind that. If right now my son already has challenges expressing himself, I'd like for you to break down for us how exactly that, and like how do I get to understand, how do I get to his brain, how when he zones off, how do I would love as a parent to know what goes on in that small mind of his. Or like, is he okay? There are very many questions that as a parent we struggle with. Like, what is he thinking? Is he hearing me? Is he understanding me? When you do something wrong, you can tell you've wronged them, but they're so loving, they're so open, they don't hold grudges, because they're things like, you'd be like, if I was the one, I'd be strangling you right now. And I'm like, there's such purity, such innocence, but then when they trip, we're done, you know? So how do we unpack this, how they process, and how do they get to live through teenage? As the bigger question before we go on to the comorbid conditions. Just break that down, since we're talking about the cycle of life and the psychology part of it. So for special needs, guide us.
One thing I'd like us to have at the back of our minds is that as much as they are living with special needs, the natural part of them is still functioning as any other child.
It's natural.
By that I mean chemically, hormonally, emotionally, they are still in the same space. What do I mean? If they are a child and they are living with CP, the needs that a child needs met, they are still there. So those needs need to be met. If they have come out and they are of school going age, which I also advocate for them to be in school.
To school.
Yes. It is important for them to have a routine and to interact with other people. It goes a long way. So when they are of school going age, the needs a child has who is of school going age, they have those same needs too. When it comes to teenagehood, they still have the same needs. So
I'm just holding. Okay, I will be patient.
they still have the same needs. If they will need to understand their growth, the changes within their body, it's happening to them, they will need that explained to them. They need to understand that. And in teenagehood, the stage is usually identity versus role confusion.
Okay.
That's the stage we call it. Because the child has come from a point of identifying themselves within a family setting. They have gone outside and they have seen, I am someone outside my family. I am an individual of my own. So they are trying to discover themselves as a person. So of course, the questions of identity will come up. Much as they are living with special needs, they still want to know who they are.
My son can't even process how will I know when he needs it, and he can't even tell me when he's in pain. That's now the small parent frustration for non-verbal children. Because I'm like, how do I figure out? How do I know that he's struggling with something? Because like right now, what we're going through as a family, because he's in that I don't know, he's 9, yeah. So he changes clothes, like he wants to pick his own clothes. I'm like, but like, no, I want this. He will start changing when he's supposed to be changing for bed. He's like, and now he knows this is a new item, this is an old item, and he actually color matches, and you're like, damn girl, you have done a good job. And like he's now started identifying, I want a watch, I want standards. And I'm like, you're still my baby. So now that is my fault, I know, of detaching from that, you're my baby, being protective. But that is a mother hawk thing that we can't. And then, like you say, when they're in school, they're a different person. Today morning, I got there, one side of the school entrance was locked. So I was like, will he figure it out? I have to let him go. He seems to turn this way. I see him coming from that side, but this is what I'm used to now. I don't know if this is my problem or... But then now letting go and trusting that he will find his way to school, because it's a new term, he's just gone to a new area. So is it that we need to entrust them more, or understand, like you say, they're individuals and they can do everything the way? But you see, for me as a parent, the fact that I can't have that conversation, I can't hear his thoughts, I can't hear him, because he gets frustrated. I can see when he overreacts. But I want to know, what is it? Are you annoyed? Okay, I know you're annoyed because you're like throwing and hitting everything. But like, what is the matter? Like, tell me, I want this. Is it something you can teach? Is it something you can be able to learn to identify? Like, is he in a safe space? You know, because I fear that we might get to teenage and there's this frustration of I can't communicate what I want with my family, leave alone the outside world, my family. And you know, with all these issues of mental health, and we have had these cases going on. I understand the depression rate of special needs kids is very high. But how do you identify? As a parent, how do I know? Because if he comes, he's very silent today. He's not very loud. He's either today he will come, he's singing too loud, he's screaming too, and I'm like, no, because that's the other thing we fight with. Like when they're too loud, you're like, please keep it down. And then when they're too quiet, like, are you okay? So there is no safe space per se when both extremes come. So that is from a parent's painful point of view. How what would be your advice to us as special needs parents, yet to reach that age? Because you see right now it's a baby. At least I'm in control. First of all, he's almost getting to my height. I'm like, I can't hold you anymore. And is it bad for me? Because you know, it gets to a point, even the ones who can talk, they tell me, don't kiss me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me. There is always that, you know, when they're self-discovery point. So I'm like, when will I know when he's there and he doesn't want to, or he wants to? How do I read the codes?
And that is a very legitimate fear. It is a very legitimate fear that a parent of a child with special needs would have. Most especially one whose expression is limited. They do not have a wealth of vocabulary, or when it comes to autism, most of them have a deficiency in speech. And social reciprocity. Thank you. Yeah, you know, and they are very particular when it comes to patterns of behavior.
Order of the day is this. Don't you move, don't you move. today we started from a different location, not straight to school. I took a different and it's like, actually for the first time, the good thing I celebrate is he said it. Yes. Okay, not as clear, but where are we going? I'm like, what did you just ask? Like, you can know actually we are not going the right. I think it was a celebration point that he actually has identified. We're taking a different route from what we normally do, and they don't like that. They don't like that because now he started questioning swimming, playing. So you explain because he knows actions, but he can't express that. I'm trying to figure out where we are headed. Please tell me. But then I also feel, even if I told him, I don't know, I know we should just talk to them, but I'm like, sometimes I'm like, is he understanding me? Am I making sense? Am I clear? Should I say it 10 times? Should I say it once? Because unless it's an instruction of go bring, where at least I'll see the action and know like, good, he understood. The emotional part of it, like how you feeling? How was your day? I get a blank stare. You know, that is a heavy, like how you come like, hey, how was your day? Did you enjoy school? How do they not know how to process that? like I know it's a tough question. Like how can they not know? Like I have the brother who has ADHD, but he's like, it was good, and he walks, you know. But I'm like, please pick that cue. Like like expression. That's where I feel like there's a misfire. Like that communication breakdown you're talking about. Like that inner feeling, the pain, frustration, like putting it into words. Is there a psychological explanation of what happens that they cannot process their emotions? Is there an explanation?
The interesting thing is they can process it, they just can't express it.
Oh, they process?
Yes.
But like telling you like I'm this and that.
Yes. I'll give an example of a child I interacted with. The mother had similar frustrations. Yes. She was actually frustrated, and when she came to the clinic, and the child noticed that the environment was quite peculiar. It was not what he was used to. So that in itself set him off.
I know.
And because he was not, he had a deficiency in speech, he could not speak that he was frustrated. So what he did was he just got into a fit. He started banging his head against the wall. He fell to the ground, started rolling, punching the ground. And at that point, you could easily pick that there is a frustration here. And he seemed angry. So this was a behavior that he used to express. Yes, he could not articulate it or verbalize it, but just by falling to the ground and doing that, and the mother would actually say, when he is uncomfortable, he does that. And stuff. So what I picked out of that is she had established a baseline for communication.
That if I fall, I'm frustrated.
Exactly.
If I bang my head, that's extreme.
A baseline in terms of if I am normal, if I am okay, this is how I will behave, this is how I respond, this is what I do. And I believe as a mom, if you have been because you have been interacting with your child daily, you more or less have gotten a hang of, this is him when he's okay. This is him when things are going the way he'd want them to go. And if something is off, you can tell. There's a certain way he'll behave, and
body language. They're actually very strong with body language.
Very strong with body language, and you can capitalize on that as a parent. You can capitalize on that as a parent. I have found teaching them to associate color with how it is they feel.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's new.
Yes, and I find that is especially effective if from the point of diagnosis, these things were taught to the child. Doesn't mean that at an older age they will not understand. They can. As soon as you start teaching them and it becomes part of their routine, because we have established when it comes to children living with autism, they thrive where there's routine. Yes. So if you find a way of working that into their routine, a child can come and show you yellow if they are excited. You know, you could ask, how is it you're feeling? Much as they cannot talk, they can point to a yellow object, or they can point to a red object.
So you can channel how to communicate that emotion.
Yes.
So is there like a color code? Because you see the way you effortlessly said yellow because of this. And for me, the minute you said that, I was like, I am angry, I am red, you know?
Yeah.
So is there a psychology of color that can actually be used to teach them?
Yes. When we are doing art therapy with children, you find if they are coloring or the drawings they make on it, if they shade it with too many dark colors, you know there's something that's amiss. If they're using your bright as the yellows, the oranges, like the really bright hues, you know, okay, they're fine. And the interesting thing is, if they use a bright shade of blue, they're good. If they use a darker shade of blue, something is blue.
So is that something that's like default, or is it you study how they use, then you see when it's amiss?
You more or less associate. There's something we call the psychology of color.
Yes. I'm an artist, so we always use that on people.
Yes. So if I don't want to look threatening to someone, I won't wear red.
Okay.
If I want you to feel happy in a room that is painted yellow, you walk into it and you start feeling joy.
Yeah.
Yes. If it's brightly colored, you have a certain joyful feeling. So if you see them being inclined to like the darker colors and all these other things, they could tell you that something is amiss. Yeah. However, you find there are children who live with ASD. You find that when it comes to their dressing, they have a particular hue they associate with. There are those who like the darker flannel looking kinds of
textures and stuff,
certain textures that they associate with. So if you know your child likes certain textures and out of nowhere they are inclined to a certain one, you know, okay, something's up. But now you need to figure out, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
But you see, that's a lot of work.
So just establishing a form of communication. It could be a sign or a symbol, or for those who can say words, if they mention, you can establish it such that if they mention one word, you know. If he says this, he's like this. If
and
he
they are
says
very
this other
observant.
word, it's like that. And they are really observant.
Yeah.
And they pick up much as social cues are a bit difficult
for some
of them to pick, doesn't mean that they do not study the environment.
Yes,
they do. So if you find what works for your child and use it to their advantage, you can then establish a baseline for communication, if I can call it that. So that if anything goes above the base or below it, you can easily pick.
And when it comes to the color, the way we were saying, so would it be easier for us to know? Because I already have like a color code in my house. Like you are the Mr. Red, because my kids are almost like twins. Yeah, actually, many people call them twins. So I'm like, you see red, you know that's it. So you see blue. Will I be influencing their likes, dislikes when it comes to color because of what I buy? Because I'm not trying to think the way you're saying, okay, if they want and they change, and I'm thinking like, oh God, I've just been like putting them, you know, the way Dexter's laboratory is all white in cartoons, like they wear the same dress every day, they don't keep changing. So I feel like would that be an influence, or should we give them the freedom to actually pick out for themselves? Because this clothes thing is actually really bugging me. I actually asked the doctor, because I'm like, we can't change clothes 5 times in a day. As in, is it because there was the association to maybe it could be a sensory thing, and I'm like, that's not. He's been fine. He doesn't have like sensory issues. So is it a habit? Is it this phase where we are having, where he's growing and he wants what it is he wants? So on the psychology side of it, because you're telling us we have to try and find out, and I'm thinking like, you know how many things are going on in this young man's life right now, you know, so how do I sieve to know exactly what it is?
So just to confirm, you said he's 9.
Yeah,
he is 9. So the stage he's in, he is associating in school. There's a population of children he is interacting with may not be as we would imagine a child would interact, but in his own space he is interacting with children. So could be it's something he's seeing on other kids or seeing around, and as he has learned to identify himself as an individual and is gradually, progressively working towards that stage, he's more or less trying to find himself.
Okay.
So you could find that ordinarily or initially he would be very rigid and he would want to, this is what I want, please don't change it or don't do it any other way. You put a dress that has a different pattern or a shirt that looks different from the other shirts he has,
And it's a problem.
he would throw a fit. But now he's seeing something else which you would say is not quite the normal. From where I stand, I would say that is progress.
It's good progress.
Yes.
Okay.
That is
No, yeah, the choosing for self is fine. The changing 5 times is my problem.
Changing 5 times. Now, it could be. Is it discomfort? Is it?
He chose the other one. So where is
Exploration.
discomfort coming from?
Is it discomfort? Is it exploration? Is it curiosity? Is it? It could be so many other things.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now let me leave that one at that. So the complexity of living in the adolescent space. For us as neurotypical, we had it rough. So your special needs and you have adolescents to deal with. How do they, not even me as a parent, how do they process that? How do they deal with it so that we are able to understand and see how to embrace, how to make sure everything is comfortable, how to, you're always afraid of losing your child at that time. They always say teenage is where you can lose your child or keep them or stuff like that.
True.
I haven't been to teenage, I've just started. My eldest is now 13, but then I'm like, okay, that's neurotypical. For special kids, like, do they get like extra grace from God, or like what's the psychology behind it?
Well, one thing the parent would need to do, of course, when it comes to the teenage age, you are deliberate about parenting. Now, when it comes to children living with special needs, even in their teenagehood, you will be deliberate and you will need to be understanding and exercise patience. So, for example, if there is information being disseminated to them in school about the bodily changes that occur, what you would have is, as a parent of a child, for example, living with autism, I would not assume that the information they got in school is correct. Is not just correct, even if it is correct, that they grasped it at the rate at which the rest did. Yes. So you would need to have a talk with them, have a conversation with them, and tell them, Baba, you're growing up, and your body will change. So you'll find you'll start sweating a lot, and this and that would happen, this hair that will be growing. Are you getting what I'm saying? And if they are, they will respond to you as they usually do when you know they have gotten the instruction you have given to them. So you may need to have a stepwise way of explaining to them what is happening. They may not have questions immediately, but as they keep processing whatever it is you say, they may look for you to try and help them to manage this. So if he notices he's sweating a bit too much and there's an odor that he doesn't really like, he could come to you and you'd give him deo and you would show him how to use the deo. And for the first few times you may find there are challenges here and there, but if you're consistent with him and you exercise patience with him, you'll find eventually he'll learn how to wear the deo. He will be doing it himself, cleaning himself. So when it comes to matters hygiene, when it comes to matters emotion, you would also need to break that down for them. That you will start feeling attracted to girls,
Or there's that part.
Yes. Or you may start noticing
that
the girls have changed and all that. So you don't hide the information from them, you tell it to them, but find a way that is conducive to them. If the best way, for example, if one best understands certain concepts or certain issues through pictures, you could use pictographic ways to explain it to them. If they understand it through play, you dramatize it in play. Yes.
So you go back to drama class for the house. Yes. So you better get skills.
If they understand it using toys or dolls, that's what happens.
So but question. So when you're saying that we need to explain it to them, so do we do like hair one this week we're discussing hair, we go. Next week we discuss something else. So we go at their speed.
Yes.
Like slowly. Not come and tell me, you'll do this, you'll do this, you'll do this, you'll do this.
So for example, if today you're discussing the physical aspects of change, you would cover the physical aspects of change. And you would need to confirm to see how much they have grasped from that information. So they have grasped it. Give it some time to sink in. See if they are actually affecting what you have discussed. If it's emotionally, like that. And once they have felt that they are safe enough to express themselves around you, you'll find if something they do not quite understand something or they feel it slipped, they would come to you and request to have it said again or to have that discussion with you.
Wow.
And as the parent, you're the one who knows best how you engage and communicate with your child. So just as they would communicate with you, you would understand, you would know.
Wow. Okay. I'm trying to think now that we're talking about that space. One of the coexisting conditions, this is OCD. Most of them have it. Which means apart from now knowing I want my things at this time, I wake up, this is what I do, don't change it, this is my routine. What's the situation with some of our special children with being we're just going to explain to us what OCD. Let me not do it. I might do it wrongly. Explain to our viewers what OCD is. What is the full name of OCD?
Okay. OCD stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder.
Okay.
And OCD is characterized by two things.
Okay.
You have obsessions and you have compulsions.
Okay.
Obsessions are things that preoccupy your thoughts.
Okay.
Certain patterns of thinking, certain ideas or ideologies you have about certain things.
Okay.
Compulsions speaks about the behavior part of it, which is, I feel like I really need to do something. So, for example, in my mind, I have imagined that the doorknob is very germy. It has germs on it. And everyone who comes and touches it brings more. So if I touch it, all the germs that everyone has are on me. So you'll find, because I know, okay, I have germs make me sick. What can I do so that I do not get sick? Wash my hands. So every single time they touch a doorknob, they will be running to the sink to wash their hands. So you can imagine how much discomfort it can bring to someone. You're leaving the house,
and they want to go wash their
you're
hands.
opening the door, you want to step out to go and perform a task, but because you have touched the doorknob, which you imagine has all those germs, you run back to the sink and wash your hands and dry them. Come back, touch the same doorknob, run back to the sink, wash your hands and dry them. You do not achieve any goal that you had set for that day simply because that obsession has preoccupied your mind, and now you're compulsively acting to sort of like soothe the obsession that is ringing.
That is a typical, what's his name? That is typical of Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper. Sheldon Cooper is your perfect. If you haven't watched that series, at least try and watch one. You will see the perfect combination of genius, autistic, obsessive, all those things we usually talk about being special. But being special and gifted, because that guy is a scientist.
Yes.
And because of time, we might have to end it there. I hope you've sent in your questions. You can interact with us as always on Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons. You can drop us an email, support@andyspeaksforspecial needs persons. That is number 4, not FOR. .org. Our SMS lines are always open, and our social media handles. On Twitter we have Andy Speaks 4. On Instagram it's just simply Andy Speaks. Andy is my son, so and he's the inspiration behind all of this. So that is why our organization is called Andy Speaks. And this is Neurodigest, where we break it down, the neuro complexities, so that we are able to understand, educate the community, and empower you as a parent to understand your child better, so that you can raise them to the best of their ability. Because we say, like a butterfly, they will thrive. You just need to put them in the right environment, treat them correctly, and for sure your child will thrive and live a near normal life, if not 100%. And thank you very much, Deborah, for being with us tonight. Thank you, Maureen, our interpreter, for always being so awesome. And we do that because we believe in inclusion and leaving no one behind. Until next week, I am your host, Sylvia Mochabo, here on Neurodigest, and we shall continue our conversation next week, having another guest. And thank you for staying with us. See you next week, and good night.